listening to My Bookcase Slays, a podcast where we discuss killer reads with the writers who create them. And today our guest is Olivia Blacke, the author of Death at the Door, a series about a ghost and a sleuth. Welcome to the show, Olivia.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this.
So, Olivia, this is book 2 in your series. Can you talk to us a little bit about the concept?
So I've got book 1 is A New Lease on Death. And then book 2 is Death at the Door. This is the one that's coming out right now. It's coming out in October. So there is a recently deceased ghost by the name of Cordelia. And a very young, very adorable young woman moves into her apartment, and Cordelia hates her because this is her apartment. This is her home. Doesn't matter that she's dead. And then when, unfortunately, their neighbor is killed and the police aren't really doing much about it, they're like, hey, you live in a bad neighborhood. Bad things happen. So Cordelia decides, I don't like this. I'm going to take care of my neighborhood. I'm going to take care of my neighbor. And I have to make friends with this young woman who lives in my space in order to do so. So both the ghost and the young woman are the sleuths in this mystery.
And what inspired you to write a book, basically a ghost story that's also a mystery?
So I love ghost stories. I love telling them. I love reading them. I love listening to them. And I love mysteries. I've been writing a lot of cozy mysteries. And cozies always have like one main sleuth that is usually very young and they're very energetic and they do all these amazing things, like they can bake bread and they can make blankets and they can solve murders. So there's this whole suspension of disbelief that this person who can either be a pillar of the community or an outsider, but they're not a law enforcement person, can solve murders. So why can't a ghost? So that was my inspiration.
I agree. I mean, a ghost certainly has capabilities beyond the normal person. Are there ghosts that have influenced your thinking about ghosts?
All my life, I've believed in ghosts. And I am the first person that like, oh, the light flickers, that's a ghost. That's my first thought for anything. I've got my bookshelf here. And for some reason, A New Lease on Death has fallen off this bookshelf like across the room more times than I can count.
Wow.
And this is a 14-foot long bookshelf that is full, and only one book falls off of it with regularity, and that's A New Lease on Death. So, like, I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's a ghost. I'm very quick to just go, yeah, that's a ghost. I believe that. So I'm just inspired by all the strange things that have ever happened. And if you hear a little ghost running around right now, that is my dog going crazy because it's dinner time. So that part is not a ghost.
So explain for the listeners the rules for your ghosts in this series, because we have a couple. There aren't very many ghosts.
Cordelia, first off, she believes that she's alone. And then she starts to meet one or two other ghosts. And Cordelia doesn't have a lot of help figuring out what's going on and what she can do. So she has to learn things, and she gets better as time goes on. So she starts by, okay, I can move something. And then she's like, I can walk through the door. And then she's like, okay, can I move something through a door? So it's things like that. And I didn't want to make it too easy, because if the ghost can do anything and knows everything, then that is a very, very, very short book.
That's true.
Pretty easy to write, but it wouldn't be as fun to read. So that she's learning the rules as she goes along. And then I have to remember what the rules were, because there's at least 3 books in the series and she has to follow the rules the whole time.
Yes, we do need consistency. Otherwise the reader's like, wait a minute, they couldn't do that in the first book. So she's invisible.
Yes.
She can move objects.
Yes.
She can move through objects, but it takes extra effort.
And it kind of depends. Like, as she gets more used to it, it becomes easier.
Okay.
And a lot of it is structured on her belief. And this is kind of my belief system. When somebody tells you that you can't do something, you start to believe that you can't. And if somebody tells you that you can do something, it might be hard, but the first time you do it, you're like, hey, I can do that. And the second time it's like, yeah, I can do that. And so it's kind of like my whole like life philosophy. If you believe you can do something, you can do it. And it might be difficult, but the more you practice it, the better it is. So the first time she walks through the door, she gets stuck. Halfway through, she's like, I can't walk through the door. This isn't possible. By book 2, by book 3, she's like, whatever, walking through doors, doing whatever she wants to do because she's starting to believe in herself. So, if you really want to have a takeaway, believe in yourself. You can do it.
Great theme. That's a great message. But also, I like the idea of a character having that learning curve. That's a great story arc throughout a series.
And I like any book or any series where the characters start to learn and grow. At the beginning of A New Lease on Death, so Ruby is our living character. And at the beginning of A New Lease on Death, she's eating like ketchup sandwiches. She does not know how to adult. So Cordelia kind of takes her in hand and tries to help on things like teaching her how to cook, teaching her how to shop. And Ruby has her own growth arc where she gets a grown-up job and she starts to eat like a grown-up and starts to take care of herself like a grown-up. Maybe by the end of the series, she'll actually be dressing in something other than cute little t-shirts. But I am a grown-up and I like my cute little t-shirts, so I might not fix that for her.
Yeah. We'll leave some of her character elements in place. Is there a superpower that Ruby is going to discover that she has? Because right now she's developing some curiosity, she's developing some adulting skills. Is there something bigger for her in store by book 3?
Ruby's growth is less supernatural and more just being more empowered. And she starts out the book. She moves to Boston because she has a bad breakup and she just wants to start all over. And she leaves her parents and she leaves her sisters and she leaves her ex, who's kind of a jerk. Anyway, her superpower is learning that she can stand on her own 2 feet, even if she's got a lot of help with the ghost that's living in her apartment. But she learns and she grows. She gets a job. When her job isn't doing so great, she starts looking for another one because she's like, hey, maybe there's other things out there. So
that's great.
That's her superpower.
That's great. Explain briefly too the decision I think you made a decision about having Cordelia and electronics not jive at all.
So part of that is I don't want things to be terribly easy. I've written cozy mysteries in the past, and I love to write a mystery in a blackout or write a mystery on the top of a mountain. I don't want you to be able to just Google the answer. And I certainly don't want you to go on a chat GPT and get the answer. So the fact that Cordelia cannot be anywhere near a computer, she can't be anywhere near a cell phone, she can't even be near a light bulb without something going wrong, kind of helps set the scene that if Ruby wants to look something up, she's got to go to the library. And if Ruby wants to talk to somebody, she has to talk to them in person, because there is nothing less interesting than a scene in a book where it's just 2 people talking on the phone. For 5 seconds, it's great, but for information, you've got to find a reason to set them in the same room. And if Cordelia can't be around a phone, then Ruby stops relying on her phone. So that's my reasoning.
I wondered about that. If writers are increasingly getting more and more creative about creating spaces and settings that aren't interrupted by technology or made too simple with technology, right?
And I think there's got to be a choice in that. I have tried to, if I'm going to go on an actual vacation, I am happy to go on a vacation where I don't know the Wi-Fi password. I want to be able to unplug. And, if there's a ghost in the room, you have to unplug. At least in my world.
Well, to be honest with you, this is the most creative device of stripping technology out of the story that I have yet encountered. So well done on that.
Thank you.
It does help the plot stay more active for sure. Is there a character that exists in your story? Because you have Ruby works at an office that Cordelia used to work at. I'm not spoiling anything for readers. Is there a character in the office or in another part of Ruby's life that you would most like to kill?
Oh, goodness gracious. There are some people in the book that seem to be helping Ruby, but they have their own reasons for doing so. And there is this one guy that she works with that is just the biggest jerk. And every once in a while, Ruby will get something over on him. But it's just the idea that there are people that you work with or are your neighbors that you don't necessarily like, and they're not nice to you, but you got to be nice to them because you're a good person. every once in a while, Ruby and Cordelia will get one over on people like that. So
Mm-hmm.
Cordelia has zero reason to not to be nice to somebody. If somebody is mean to Ruby and they find their shoelaces tied or that their drawers are super glued together, it's something bad will befall them. So Cordelia is more fun.
And as a reader, those are super satisfying moments when they get theirs. And the character that you'd most like to hang out with?
Oh, probably Cordelia. I think she would get into so much trouble. Cordelia, every once in a while, will discover something about herself. Like, she will walk into a bar, and if somebody is just completely drunk, like not on this plane of existence, they can interact with her. So I like the idea of like people who are having conversations with people that you can't see, whether it's Bluetooth or whether they're just, off in their own little world.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea that they really are hanging out with somebody like Cordelia. Because why not? It'd be fun.
It's so interesting to meet a character in the afterlife and understand that who she is now as a ghost isn't who she was as a person. And the reader and Ruby spend some time unpacking those two different identities.
So Cordelia was kind of a selfish person whenever she was alive. And part of that is because she never had it easy. She had a rough childhood. She had a rough adulthood. She made some really bad decisions, mostly because, when you're selfish, you make some bad decisions in your life. And now that she's dead and she cannot be selfish anymore, she is actually growing and evolving as a person. And it's a little too late for her, but she's helping other people be better because literally, like, she didn't care about anything except for herself. And now she's got like this 20-year-old girl that she's looking out for, and she's trying to solve murders and she's trying to fix things for other people because she can't do it for herself. So she's got a little bit of growth going on.
It's an interesting way of developing a character's conscience.
I don't know that she's aware of it, but in the background, I think she's starting to figure out, hey, maybe I could be a little bit better of a person.
What's the question that your friends and family are asking you after they finish reading your books?
They normally want to know what ghost story inspired this scene, or what thought inspired this scene. And there is a scene at New Lease on Death. It's in the first book. Ruby gets on a bus, public transportation, downtown Boston, and she gets harassed by this dude. And everybody else on the bus, and Ruby is a very small woman. She's a very young woman. She's very sweet and very cute. And she's getting harassed by this big dude. And everybody on the bus is like, la, la, la. I don't see a thing. I don't care what's happening. And my editor was like, you have to remove this. There's no way anybody's going to watch this cute young girl get harassed and not say anything. I was like, okay. Then a week later, she like emails me back. She's like, okay, I hate to say this, but you have to put the scene back in because I just watched that exact scene unfold on public transportation. So, I mean, there are things that are inspired by things I have seen or experienced in real life. But when friends ask, like, what inspired this scene, especially if it has anything to do with real life, nobody believes me.
The truth is always stranger than fiction, right?
Yeah, it really is.
We really have to dial it back when we're pretending.
Especially these days. I think these days, like, every time that you leave the house and you hear something else, you're like, that didn't just happen. And It did.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, no, it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Another fun fact about this book. Oh, I just unplugged my lamp. Oops. That was not a ghost. That was literally my foot kicking the cord.
You say
that. What helped you keep the tricky point of view straight? Because here's the deal, readers. There are 2 points of view presented, not necessarily always alternating chapters, but there are alternating points of view between Cordelia and Ruby. They are aware of different things because they're not always in the same place, and they aren't always aware of each other in the same way. Can you address that a little bit for the listeners?
Even if they are in the same room together, they're experiencing something completely different. Cordelia might be aware of something that's going on behind a wall that Ruby doesn't know about. or Ruby's having a conversation on the phone that Cordelia can't be a part of. So there's always new information to be had. And after writing the book, sometimes I will go back and go, no, the scene makes more sense if it's from a different point of view. So I'll rewrite it. But then, so I don't know if you use Word, but if you use Word, if you've got headers, you can collapse your headers. So I will collapse all the Cordelia headers and I will read Ruby's story from start to beginning. And then I will collapse all of Ruby's headers and I will read Cordelia's story from beginning to end. I want to make sure that both of them have a complete story, that it's about balance. And it's not every chapter. Sometimes it'll be 2 or 3 chapters from Cordelia's point of view, then one from Ruby, and one from Cordelia. It depends on what story they have to tell and in what order it's got to be told. Sometimes I'll read all of Ruby's and I'm like, that doesn't sound like Ruby. That sounds like Cordelia. So it gives me a chance to fix it. And that's just by going through it and reading one point of view at a time.
That's such a good hack as a writer, because that's the other piece of it, right? You are not only giving 2 different stories or perspectives, but you're also giving 2 different personalities.
Yeah. And they have very distinct voices. They speak differently. They think differently. And even just the length of the sentences that are used in the chapters are going to vary. And sometimes, if I'm just like writing, I won't think about it. And Ruby will suddenly say, and then Ruby did the silliest thing the other day. And I'm like, okay, you're not talking in third person all of a sudden.
Yes. And there's an added complication because Cordelia is always aware of Ruby.
Yes.
But Ruby is not always aware of Cordelia.
Correct. And they're not always in the same room together. So there are a lot of times that Ruby will be having a whole conversation and Cordelia will walk in. Who are you talking to? Because Ruby doesn't necessarily know when Cordelia is in the room.
Right.
She gets better at it. You ask about superpowers, and I think it's that little feeling in the back of your head that, somebody's watching you, or, if you've ever walked through your house in the middle of the night and you just have a feeling that somebody else is awake, it's that kind of sense that Ruby's like, I think somebody's in the room with me, and she's usually right.
And one of the things that I did like about the book too was how dogs and cats interact with ghosts.
So I don't know if you have any pets.
I have 2 cats that live here with me.
Have you ever noticed like the cats will sit there and stare at a wall and nothing is happening, and you're like, oh, okay, there's like a bug over there. No, it's not a bug. Like they're having a conversation with somebody you can't see. So I love the idea of like Cordelia walking through a room and all the cats going like, what? And like sometimes dogs will bark at her on the street. And especially if she's walking with Ruby, Ruby's like, why do dogs hate me all of a sudden? They used to like me.
I got a big chuckle out of that, honestly.
I truly think, my dog will sit there and bark out the window. And I'm like, it could be a leaf or it could be a ghost. I don't know, because there is nothing moving.
So what scene got cut from this book, Death at the Door?
Death at the Door was actually a very difficult book to write. I was in the middle of moving. I was making a huge change and just living situation and everything. And I'm trying to write whenever I can. I also have a full-time day job. And so it was very, very difficult. And there was one scene that was in my head that kind of inspired a relationship, which was Cordelia has a brother who is a total just layabout. He has done nothing good in his entire life except for sap Cordelia's energy, sap her money. She feels like she's responsible for him. So she's basically coddled him his whole life. He's kind of a jerk. And I wanted him to show up and immediately start like, oh, Ruby, you're cute, and start dating Ruby. And that was actually like my inspiration for bringing Ian. Ian is the brother. And I thought it would be really funny. So I wrote the whole book around this, and it didn't work. Nothing worked. And I was kind of late with it anyway. I turned it into my editor, and I was like, I don't know if this works or not. And she turned it back, and she's like, yeah, it doesn't work. Redo it. So when you asked me what scene I cut, probably 75% of the first draft.
Wow.
But the good part is the book that came out of it, I absolutely love.
Yeah.
The first draft I wasn't sure on, and I was just like, I don't know where it went wrong. Unfortunately, it went wrong in like page 5. So I was like,
That's helpful.
okay, do it again.
Well done to make the adjustment. And I think that the relationship that you do cultivate between Ruby and Ian, as I read it, I really enjoyed it.
Well, fantastic. And I mean, honestly, that goes out to my editor. My editor was really good at highlighting, like, this is the part of the story that works. Get rid of the rest. So
And will we be seeing Ian in the third book?
yes,
Oh,
Ian
good.
is so in the third book. um Ian is a pest, and I love writing pests because, they're fun. They mess things up. They turn things around. A book with absolutely nothing that goes wrong in it, very boring book. So somebody like Ian, who is just, he's chaos. He's fun to have around.
Yeah, he is a fun guy.
Ruby probably doesn't think so, but I do.
I well, she didn't seem to mind him a whole lot at first, anyway.
I think she starts to get his number. She starts to figure out whenever he's being less than sincere, because he is very, very good at working people. And Ruby is very sweet and very naive. And unfortunately, she's going to have to get burned a couple of times before she gets over that.
Yeah, that's youth for you, right?
That's life. Got to figure it out sometime.
Before I let you go, I always like to ask, is there a book that you're recommending to everybody to read?
So the book that I'm reading right now, I actually have it next to me. It is called Crime Inc. Crime Inc. Iconic. And it is a series of short stories by underrepresented authors. And most of the stories are queer, but every single story is underrepresented. Either the main character's underrepresented, the author's underrepresented, and it runs the gambit. We've got some historical mysteries, we've got modern, we've got cozies, we've got noir. Some of them are laugh out loud funny, and some of them are just like, ugh, cringe. So it is something for everyone. And it's got something like 20 authors, 20. Usually whenever I pick up an anthology, I'm like, hey, if I'm lucky, I'll find 3 new authors in here. I think I found like 20 new authors.
Wow.
So this book hopefully will cost you a lot, because you end up having to buy all the authors because they are so good. But also it's a really fun way to find out what you like. And especially like if you only read cozies and then you get like a noir in there and you're like, maybe I like noir too. So I love anthologies, and Crime Inc. is what I'm reading right now, because it just makes me happy. And I have found so many authors in here that I need to read more of.
Well, Olivia, you've given me a lot of curiosity about another book now, so thank you very much for that.
And it's an anthology, so you can devote 5 minutes to it a day or an hour a day. You don't, sit down and, okay, I'm going to read this book cover to cover this weekend because
Mhm.
I carved out time. I love anthologies because you can read whenever you have time.
Yes, there's huge benefit in that, just sort of dipping in and out.
Yeah,
Well,
it's very helpful.
thank you for your time today, Olivia Blacke. The book is Death at the Door, a series about a sleuth and a ghost solving mysteries, well, murders specifically, together. And I am thankful to the author's radio network for helping be part of producing this program.
Thank you.